Yes, ready to go any minute.
Hold off all the calls. Here we There we go. All right. I'm coming over, and we should be starting. And bring the paper with me. Okay.
Were you going to share?
Yeah, I'm going to share when I get
Okay, gotcha.
Just let everybody know, of course, I'm Doc G, and this is my guest today, special guest, Daniel Wheeler.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Good to be here, Doc. Good to
Welcome.
be with you.
And Daniel is a former QVC host, and you're what, a minister, and...
Well, I started a ministry called Fearless Faith Ministries, and right now we're on Facebook. You can put in FFM60 or go to Fearless Faith Ministries, and every day we give you your morning cup of inspiration. We have these great mugs that say Morning Cup of Inspiration. It's a 3-minute message. It will get your day going right, and I did that after leaving QVC. I retired from QVC almost a year ago. And I can't believe the year has flown by that long, but they gave me a big retirement party, and they're a great company. QVC was very good to me. And if you're a QVC viewer, you might be seeing me in the new year popping up as a guest from time to time. Give you a little hint, it might be in a food show. So
Beautiful.
watch for that.
Well, we would love to... I know my listeners and visitors that come here would love to have somebody like you here, because you would be an asset to the station.
Well, thanks. Now that I found my way here, maybe I'll be here more often.
You're welcome here anytime.
Thanks.
I'm just sharing
So,
this with
yes.
Daniel really quick on
Yeah.
his page.
And you can put it Dan Wheeler. Daniel is my personal page.
Okay, Dan
but
Wheeler, okay.
I go by Dan. I had to change things around when I left QVC and I was moving Facebook viewers over. But up here in Trenton, I forgot how fast people drive in New Jersey.
I just sent it to you. But it's going to, it's going to Dan Wheeler. It's going to Danielle Wheeler.
If it goes to Daniel, maybe I can get it there and share it onto my Dan Wheeler page.
See, this social network, guys, is so complicated because, we spent 10 minutes trying to get it up on Facebook.
Just to log in.
Just to get it logged in on Facebook. Yeah. And to actually do a show with Dan, it's like, oh my God, the main source of any show today, of course, is visual.
Yes,
not just audio.
Right, so it's nice that we can be on Facebook. And I'm not seeing a link yet on
It
Daniel
should come up.
Wheeler,
look under your messages.
Oh, messages.
Yeah, because it wouldn't let me share it other than that.
Oh,
so look under your messages.
All right, there's a message.
And you should be able to get it.
Okay.
Please let me know you got it.
Gene Piero, Daniel.
There you go.
Okay, so what do I do now?
You just copy. You should be able to copy it. Open it up.
Okay.
Just listen to
We're going to get this figured out, folks. Come
Open
to you
it up.
live.
And then you'll hear us talking now.
I hear us talking.
And then you'd be able to either share.
Okay, let's share it.
Or right to your post.
Okay.
Right to your post.
Yeah.
Post. This is really important to me, guys, because we are working on not only moving, but we're also working on getting a new clientele here, more professional people, and Dan is professional. He's also a musician, and you don't really need to tell him a lot of things. But the reason why he's here is because we're going to talk about this book.
Yes.
It's called The Hurricane of Love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though I never read it, okay, I got to say that, we're very spiritual here. Mm-hmm. And we're very full of a lot of the love and everything that goes along with it. The compassion, the passion. Mm-hmm. And I could see where you're coming from with this. You've outlined questions for me, which is great because not reading it, I really don't know what to ask you.
That's okay. I know the book. I wrote it. But you can start right there, and we'll list. And I think I got things shared now.
Yeah, make sure everybody's shared.
All right, there it is.
Beautiful.
Come on, I got it on both pages.
And hold all calls, right?
We're
going to hold all calls till about 3:30, 3:45. We're going to roll probably all the way into almost 5 o'clock because the next show will be on at 5 o'clock. In fact, that's another great show. But I just want to, we're going to preempt this and say, Dan is where you're in Pennsylvania, Philly?
Yeah, outside of Downingtown,
So
Pennsylvania.
you're not that far.
Not too far. It took about an hour and 10, 15 minutes to get up here.
That's not too bad.
No, it wasn't bad.
Okay. So let's talk about the book, and then we'll get into the other stuff.
Right.
The history of what you say, how did you come up with the title Hurricane of Love?
Well,
That's where we should leave
my
off.
wife battled stage 4 cancer for 3 years. She battled it courageously. We found out the summer of 2012, she was having a lot of stomach pains, and I would beg her to get to the doctor, and she would say, Dan, I don't want to go to the doctor. They're just going to tell me I have cancer.
That's my wife. My wife says the same thing and
Is
has
that
the
right?
stomach pain all the time.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's,
Right.
it's like when you go to Google or YouTube or you research something, it's like you think that you have all the things, and then
Right.
there's like a worst case scenario, and it's nothing.
Yeah.
So
well, I think
where do you fall in that?
Yeah, I think my wife somehow knew she had cancer because she said, they're just going to tell me I have cancer. In fact, the first chapter of my book, Hurricane of Love, the title is, They're Just Going to Tell Me I Have Cancer.
Wow.
And I would beg her to get to the doctor. And when she finally did in October of 2012, the nurse that was doing the ultrasound said, I don't like the way this looks. Your uterine wall is too thick. This looks like cancer to me. She left the doctor's office, and she got on the road about 5 minutes, and the doctor called her and said, you need to get back in here. We need to biopsy this right away. So I was in and out of meetings that day. It was Friday, October 19th, 2012. And I came out of a meeting, and I checked my phone, and there were all these messages from her. She said, call me right away. Please come home right away. And I flew out of QVC Studio Park. I wasn't on that night, thank the Lord.
Wow.
And I got home, and I found her in our bedroom, hugging a pillow and crying. And she told me what the doctor had said, and that was a long weekend. We had to wait, wondering, does she have cancer? And I tried to keep her mind off it, but inside I was scared. And the next week we got the confirmation it was malignant. And then you have a million questions. What kind of cancer? Where is it? We interviewed a couple doctors. I didn't want to mess around. I went to the biggest hospital in Philadelphia. I won't use the name. I changed all the names in the book. But we got into the top guy, the head of the gynecological oncology department at this huge hospital. And he said, I want to get in right away. Scheduled surgery for November 14th, 2012. And that day, after waiting in the waiting room for about 6 to 7 hours, Gene, you get a call. The hospital's so big, the doctor doesn't even come and talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like O'Hare Airport. You're looking at all these monitors tracking your patient
Right.
as to what operating room they were in, who the doctor was, when they were out, when they were in recovery. And finally, after all these hours, the lady at the reception desk calls your name, and you go up and you take the call from the doctor. And he said, Dan, I got what I could, unfortunately. And when I heard that word, unfortunately, Gene, it was like a bomb exploded in my brain. And he went on to say, unfortunately, it's more aggressive than we thought. It has spread throughout her abdomen.
Oh, my God.
We can't do radiation. It's among too many vital organs, so we're going to do chemo and do what we can. And then we went on this 3-year journey, and the book is filled with a lot of love. This is a book of hope. I want people to know it, even though I deal with a very tough subject.
Tough.
And those were the 3 hardest years of my life, Gene. I talk about what it was like to have to be this cheerful, upbeat guy on a national television program every night, and knowing my wife was dying of cancer and what that was like, but also our journey. And my wife faced death fearlessly, which is why I called my ministry Fearless Faith. But the term,
I love that.
Thank you. The term Hurricane of Love actually came from a niece of mine who's an excellent writer. In a blog, the day my wife passed away, she wrote, my Aunt Beth's love was like a hurricane. It hit everyone in its path. And I said, Tara, that is the perfect way to describe it. My wife was a hurricane of love. Her love spread through the halls of medical clinics, hospitals, doctors' offices, and every medical person that worked on her was deeply impacted by her life. She was just a joyful person. And
So
she
like
taught
an
me,
angel to me.
yeah. She taught me how to live in the moment, and that's the real message of this book. Live in the moment, folks. You know, Gene, you walk into a restaurant these days, you see a couple sitting across from each other. They're on their phones.
Yeah, I know.
They're on these devices. Put
Right.
them away. Be present with the one you're with, right? So that's a big message in my book.
Wow. Well, I just want to let you know my co-partner and co-business partner, Ruben Rodriguez, just came in.
Hello,
He's
Ruben.
manning the board for me.
Thank you.
He's a great guy. He also runs Iron Horse Films, which is another add-on to Hamilton Radio, where two companies that come together.
Nice.
Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago. But I want to ask you, what convinced you that Beth was the girl you wanted to marry? I mean, I've been married 26 years
Yeah.
to my wife.
Well, congratulations. She stayed with you that long.
She stayed. Right. I think I stayed, right, Ruben? I think I stayed longer, right? Because there's many times, you know, you just live life.
You know what? There's days when you don't get along with your spouse at all.
Yeah.
That can be your unfavorite person. But I'll tell you, in the long run, you miss them when they're gone. And I miss my wife tremendously. And I talk about having a cup of coffee with her. I'd give anything to have that again. But what was your question?
What convinced you that
that
Beth
I
was
should marry her?
Yeah.
You know, it was funny because I met her on a train going into Chicago. I was working for a Christian TV station. We were on the roof, really the top suite of the Civic Opera building in Chicago. It's a beautiful, ornate building. It was the old CBS studios. And I worked, and I'm on the train, and the train stops at, it was a stop called LaGrange, I believe, and you know where that is?
Yes, it is.
And this cute girl gets on, and she sits down right in the seat in front of me, and out of the side of my face, I thought, man, she looks cute. And I was trying to look in the reflection of the window to see what her face looked like. And finally, I don't know what possessed me, but I tapped her on the shoulder. And I said, look, I've been trying to read this book, and it's really boring. And would you mind if I joined you? And she gave me the brightest smile and said, sure, come on up. We talked all the way into Union Station in Chicago. Wow. When we got off the train, I said, where do you work? And she said, the Civic Opera building. I said, what are the odds of that? I work in the same building. So we talk all the way into the building. We get there, and I figure, I'm on a roll. I might as well keep shooting, right? So I said, hey, I got a little time. Do you have time to catch lunch? And she said, sure, again. We go up to the third floor cafeteria. We get our food. We get through the line. I go to pay, and I reach in my pockets, nothing. Pull out my wallet, don't have a single dollar. Pull out my briefcase, I didn't have a dime. So she paid for that first lunch. Wow. And she said she wondered if I was like a con man. Like, did I do this all the time with women to get free lunches? And I said, no, I promise you, if you'll pay for this meal, I'll take you out later in the week, which I delivered on. I took her to it was called Italian Village. I think the bill was like $20, which I couldn't afford at the time. But I took her out anyway. And that meal led to thousands of others because her name was Beth Johnson, which became Beth Wheeler. And the way I'll tell you, when I decided she was the girl I wanted to marry, we'd been dating a while because I moved kind of slow, and I didn't have any money at the time, and I didn't think I could afford to be married.
Right.
I mean, I worked for a Christian television station. I was making nothing. But we were at a wedding, and it was a bunch of young people. We were all in our late 20s, and we were at a table with some of Beth's friends and some of my friends. Everybody's having a great time. But Beth noticed this little elderly gentleman. He was probably almost 80 years old, sitting alone. No one was talking to him, right. And he wasn't enjoying it. And she said to everyone at the table, would you mind if I asked this little man, hello, how are you?
That's Sandy, the children's book author. That's my wife.
Hello, Sandy. I'm Dan. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. So I'm in the middle of a story of a great story about my wife. And so Beth asked everyone at the table, she said, would you mind if I asked this little man to join us? And everybody said, sure. The next thing we know, she's helping this elderly man up from the table, brings him to the table. He had the time of his life. Beth sat right next to him, just made all over him, made him laugh. At the end of the night, he hugged her. He said, thank you so much. I had the time of my life. And I said, that's the girl I want to marry. I want someone that loves like that can reach out. And when I titled this book, Hurricane of Love, it's no exaggeration. My wife knew how to love. She knew how to live in the moment. We have this little sitting room in our home. You go through these French doors, and there's no TV in there. It's my favorite room. There's just a lazy boy chair, a couch, and a hutch. And she used to sit on that couch and have her morning coffee before she got sick.
Oh, that's where you get the coffee inspiration.
Your morning cup of inspiration.
I love that.
Well, she would often tap that couch when I'd walk through, and we had a nickname for each other. It was cakeys. It started out baby cakes, then it evolved to cakes, and somehow it ended up being cakeys. And she'd say, "Cakeys, come sit and have coffee with me." And regrettably, many times I would say, "Beth, I don't have time to sit. I've got a major show tonight, big celebrities. I've got all this stuff I've got to do. I've got to get going. I wish I could sit." Well, once we received the stage 4 cancer diagnosis, I always took time to sit. Nothing became more important than having a cup of coffee with my wife. And I would give anything to be able to have it again with her. She's been gone over 3 years, and I miss her every day. But my mission now is to share this, which is why I retired from QVC to start this ministry and write this book. And the book's doing well. It's got 5-star reviews on Amazon. You can check it out. There's 34 5-star reviews. But I've heard from hundreds of people who said it's helped them with their grief. Because when you lose your spouse, I mean, you're lost for a long time. And I had a few months where I could barely get out of bed. And I have to say, QVC was awesome to me. They were like, "Dan, don't rush it." My boss would say, "You're more important to me than this huge network," which I was a part of. And
that's beautiful. That's
said,
what we always say.
Yeah. Finally, there came a point where I realized I kind of needed to work again. But I would just cry all day long, and I'd look at pictures of her, I'd look at videos, and I was dealing with a lot of guilt, and it's very common when a spouse dies. The other spouse who's still here has guilt. I was like, why am I healthy?
Yeah.
I can still go to the gym, I can still run and work out. Why did my wife get stage 4 cancer? And was I a good enough husband? Did I pay enough attention to her? Was I the man I was supposed to be? And I'll tell you, it changes your life. And I never thought it would happen to me. I never thought my wife would get stage 4 cancer, but you know, none of us gets out of here alive. No one leaves this world alive, and time is short. So my message in the book is be present. Be present with the ones you love. Be where you are. Get off of this.
Yeah.
Don't spend all your time in the ether world.
I agree
and
with
let's
that.
have some relationships again. Let's make every minute count. Let's squeeze 60 seconds out of every minute. But that's how I knew Beth was the girl I wanted to marry. She had that kind of love and just affected everybody. The second you met her, you felt like you'd known her all your life. She had the enviable ability to make you feel like she was your best friend, like you'd known her all her life. And I know of several dozen people who considered her their very best friend.
Well, I want you, just because my wife came in and she's having these issues with her stomach, I just want you to recap a little bit what you said at the beginning, and also for the viewers, you know, the little summary of what happened, how she got the cancer, and what did you guys think it was something else?
Well, the first chapter is called "They're Just Going to Tell Me I Have Cancer," and that's what she would say to me when I said, "I want to get you into the doctor." She was having a lot of stomach pain. She would describe it as the Pac-Man game. Remember the Pac-Man, Mr. Pac-Man, whack, 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 eating all the dots? She felt like something was eating away at the inside of her stomach, and I would beg her to get to the doctor. And she kept saying, "I don't want to go to the doctor. They're going to tell me I have cancer." When she finally did, it was cancer, and it was advanced. It was stage 4 by the time we caught it. It had spread. It started in the lining of her uterus. It's called endometrial cancer. Ladies, get checked out. And here's the kicker of the situation.
Is there a check for that, though?
Well, there's a check for ovarian cancer, but it's difficult. It's not, they check for breast cancer. Breast cancer gets all the attention.
Right.
But ovarian cancer can be deadly if it's not caught in time. So I say get to your OB/GYN, get your ultrasound. They can tell from an ultrasound if something's wrong with your uterine wall. And that's how they found it with my wife. But it had spread throughout her abdomen, and the only thing we could do, it was among so many vital organs, we couldn't radiate. They couldn't cut any more out. So we had to do chemotherapy. Now, I've got a title in my book. And I'll tell you, this book is a love story. And I've heard of couples who said, man, it's made me want to love my spouse, my girlfriend more. We decided, because my wife was such a positive person, that when she had cancer and we had to start our chemotherapy, we decided to call chemo days chemo dates. We treated it like a date.
Right.
We had to drive into downtown Philly, which is over an hour from where I live, and in rush hour it was even longer, an hour each way. We'd have to get up early. She'd check into the doctor's office up on the 3rd floor, and I'd go right to the bakery. We discovered they had chocolate croissants. And when Beth and I were dating in Chicago, we had a little bakery we used to stop at on the way into work, and we get chocolate croissants. So it kind of took us back to our dating days. And so I would get those, and when she'd come out of the doctor's office and we'd get checked into a suite, I would warm them up in the microwave on the floor of the chemo suite and bring them in. And then at lunch, I would go down because they had delicious soups, tomato basil soup we'd get. And you know what we discovered? We discovered that eating a chocolate croissant or having tomato basil soup with the one you love is still a great time, even if it's in a chemo suite. We decided to make the most.
It doesn't matter where it's
of
at,
every
right?
minute. No,
because
it didn't.
it's just as long as it's you two, and you're there for that time,
I'd give anything
right?
to be back in those chemo suites, having lunch with her, or having breakfast with her. It's that's what it's about. That's what life is about, being with the ones you love and telling them you love them. Don't wait till they're gone. You know, if my wife were here, Gene, she'd be really upset with me that I wrote this book, that I've been traveling around the country promoting it. She'd say, why are you making such a big deal? And
because she was a big deal.
I would tell her, because you were a big deal.
Yeah,
in the intro to my book,
absolutely.
I say, I've been on national TV for 30 years, but my wife was the real star of the Wheeler family.
Oh.
She was my rock. I couldn't have done what I did all those years in my career without her.
Wow, that's the way me and my wife are too. I know she gets a little mad at me because I'm always here at the studio doing shows, but you know, we have that combined effort. She's my rock. There's nobody else can do that what she does.
That's good to see, and I can tell you married above your head, Gene. Just looking at her.
Yeah, she's adorable. She's an adorable woman. But I want to get back to some of the questions here, and we might be taking questions here. A lot of people They love you. They watched you on QVC for years.
Oh, thank you.
We'll get back to the questions. They want to know what you're doing now, but we'll get into that
sure.
as we grow in. But we'll get back to your questions. How do you remain cheerful and upbeat on QVC, knowing that your wife was literally fighting for her life?
Yeah, Gene, we all have a job to do, regardless of what we're going through personally. And I think people sometimes see others on TV and they think, wow, they got the world by the tail. They got it all going on. People on TV have real problems, just like everybody else. And when my wife had cancer, I wished I had a job where I could hide in a cubicle or behind a closed door in an office, because trying to be out there in front of the public
Mr.
every
Smile.
night, big smile. And the only way I could do it is I developed this weird technique, but it worked for me. And I think you got to find what works. I would go, when I'd get checked into work, we had this thing called the ops desk, a big operations desk outside of our major studio. We had studios all over this building, but that was like Control Central, and they would tell me who was there, if my guests were here, where they were, what time my makeup appointment was, and when the producers wanted to meet with me. They told me everything. And after I'd check in there, I'd go in, I'd get all my stuff, and I'd go into my dressing room, and then I'd walk to my mailbox, and I would open my mailbox, literally open it, and say, I have to put you all in here. And I would put my problems figuratively in the mailbox, and I'd say, I'll pick you up after the show.
Wow.
I have to go be Mr. Happy. I have to go out there
That's
and
so
inspire others. And it was very difficult. There were times when I was on the air when I'd be in the middle, especially that last summer. She died in October of, I shouldn't say she died, she passed into heaven, October 30th of 2015. And that summer before, we were doing a Christmas in July, and I'd be in the middle of a presentation, and I'd think, my wife probably won't be here at Christmas. And when that thought hits you and you're on national TV, it's not a good thing. And I'd say, God, please help me to get my focus back. And he would always help me get back at it. And I remember one night, it was probably 2 minutes before the tally light was coming on. I had a major primetime show, big goals, big everything. And all of a sudden, both of my arms went completely numb. I couldn't feel anything. And the studio started spinning on me.
No.
I looked up and I saw the lights going on. This is all in the book, by the way. And I would just cry out. I cried out to God. I said, God, I can't go down now. Please, you have to help me to get through this. And just before the tally light came on, somehow I was back and I did the show. And I don't even know what I did that night, but the sales were tremendous. And it was a miracle. I mean, I saw a lot of miracles, but it was a very difficult time. And, somehow God got me through. And the prayers, I know I had hundreds of thousands of people praying for me during that time. And, man, I needed every one of them. So thank you.
Yeah, no. Did you want to take a break at all? I forgot to ask you because we have an extra time. We can go
Doesn't
straight
matter.
through. I mean, I could talk for 3 hours.
I
no
used
problem.
to talk 3 to 4 hours at a time at QVC. So
Okay.
I'm good.
Do you guys have any questions, by the way?
Can I get one of these?
Yeah. Do you take this one?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Because we're going to take some questions and we're going to go back to some of his questions too. Do you guys have any questions? Ruben, Sandy here, and also on here. They just want to know what he's going to be doing in the future. But can you imagine going through this and him in front of the public trying to remain calm, trying to smile, and knowing what's going on in the background? It's like you said, you have to be at least 2 people. You have to be.
I did. That's a great question because I have a chapter in the book called Good Grief. And since this book came out in late October when it was released, I've heard from hundreds of people. In fact, I spend 3 to 4 hours a day answering emails and Facebook messages and things like that. But they've told me that the book has helped them get unstuck. People have been stuck in grief for years and years. And I want to say
that's beautiful.
That
that's beautiful.
Yeah, this is a hard time of year for those of us who've lost people. You know, for millions of people, it's Christmas and wow, it's joyful. But for millions, many millions, they grieve silently, and it's a very difficult time. It's a horrible time. And I remember the first Christmas, my wife had passed in October, and my daughter said, "Dad, we got to put up a tree." I'm like, "Nope. I don't want to put up a tree. I don't want to hear a Christmas song." I mean, I would just cry all the time. And in fact, this year when we put up the tree, there's a little ornament with a picture of Beth and I from our early dating days. And every time I see that ornament, I cry, and I still do. And everybody else's joy kind of deepens your. Man, I'm sorry, my phone keeps going.
That's okay.
I'm gonna.
We are going to take calls too, by the way. So please look on that on the phone, Ruben, if you can. But
I was just going to say, so reach out to those. If you know someone's lost someone, reach out to them. Maybe you're saying, "Dan, I don't know what I would say." That's not important. Don't worry
just
about
say you
what
love
you're
them.
going to say.
Just say, "I love you."
Just put your arm around them. Show up. I call it the ministry of presence. Be present.
I love that.
Because people won't remember what you said to them, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Right.
Make them feel loved. And by the way, show up with food. Bring them pretzels. Bring them their favorite
food.
You know, I had some of my good friends at QVC, Rick Domeyer, Mary.
I
Beth
love
Rowe.
all of them.
Oh my gosh, David Venable. I would come out in the kitchen because I was with my wife nonstop, and they would. I remember one day Mary Beth Rowe was in my kitchen just stocking my refrigerator full of food. Rick's wife Amy cooked us all kinds of food, and because I had like 20 people at my house, I brought in relatives and friends from all around the country, and I didn't want to miss a moment with Beth. But there's so much in this book, Gene, and if I could just say, it's available on Amazon.
Oh yeah, please.
.com, because remember, I used to sell stuff.
Yeah.
It's available. You can go to hurricaneoflove.com. And you'll see a long interview I did there. So it's about an 8-minute interview I did with my publisher about the book and the vision of the book. And there's also a button. You can order it right there. It takes you right to my ordering page from my publisher, Westbow Press. So go to hurricaneoflove.com or Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. HarperCollins next year wants to put it in all the bookstores, which I'm really excited about. So we're just getting going with it. But
beautiful.
I think it'll help you. I think it'll help you realize what love is all about. You know, love isn't sex and dating and all the things. I mean, those are wonderful things when you first start out. But love is taking care of your loved one when they've lost control of their bodily functions, clean them up, and realizing that they would have done it for you 1,000 times over. She would have done it for me 10,000 times over. It was an honor, and it was a privilege to care for her. And it was probably my greatest accomplishment in life. Of all the things I've been able to do.
Your marriage, you mean?
That I was able to care for her.
Yeah.
That I was able to rise to the occasion. You know, I remember, Gene, when we found out the diagnosis and I realized the care it was going to require, I prayed. I said, "God, help me not to fail. Help me to come through on this one. I want to be there for her." And QVC was so good to me. I literally had a little room down at the place where we were getting chemo in Philly. And there was a phone, and I was able to do all my meetings by phone. QVC said, "You be with your wife, call in so you have the information, and just be there for your air shifts." So that was a real blessing. But yeah, it's It was quite a journey, but when I look back, it was probably the most meaningful time of my life. My wife and I spent more time together in those 3 years than we had in the previous 25 of our marriage.
Isn't that sad? I mean,
Yeah.
you're right. It's the everything around us is always more important because it's a digital age and everything. But we're missing that main meaning, which is when you get married to love each other for better or worse, like what you said, and also without everything around you, all the obstacles around you, all the hurdles around you of people trying to split you up, or working you're working constantly just to pay the bills, so you're not seeing your spouse as much. So you're right. I mean, if you don't, someday you're going to regret that you didn't.
Yeah. I used to have this hardware collection of awards I'd won and things I'd done, and I've been able to host shows from around the world. And I mean, I had this life that was too good to be true almost. But of all the things I've
like
done,
a rock star, you lived life like a rock star.
It was like a little rock star. But
no, people know your name. They know who you are. You're a rock star.
Yeah, and that's nice when you get recognized and they want your autograph, and that's all nice. But I'll tell you, the most meaningful thing that ever happened to me was when it was near the end and we were downtown. Beth was in a hospital in Philadelphia, and it was before I brought her home because I didn't want her to die in a hospital. But one day I'd cleaned her up, and it was one of those days where I was up constantly because she had to go to the bathroom a lot, and sometimes she didn't make it, and she was embarrassed by that, and she wanted. So I wanted to be her nurse, so I was helping the nurses, but I was the one that got her up and cleaned her up. And one day I cleaned her up, and she looked at me, and she said, "Keikis, what would I ever do without you?" And I looked at her, and I said, "Keikis," I said, "you'll never need to know." Because I'm not going anywhere. And of all the things I've done in life, I'm the most proud of that.
Yeah.
I was there. And I didn't know when I found out, I didn't know if I could do it. I was used to this wonderful life.
Sure.
People taking care of me. But, wow, that was, I'm sorry, I still get choked up.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Here you go. It's okay.
So I think we all have to sit back and reflect and just realize what is important. It's important that you tell the people you love them, and don't just tell them. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. Do it. Show them you love them. Do things for them. So those are all messages in the book. I'm sorry. I'll get it together.
No, just give it a little break. Give it like a couple second break. We'll talk off air. But there's a lot of people tuning in, and that's great. I'm going to get some shout outs. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Jewel Delcourt is watching. John Doc Farrell, Brendan Melton, Chris McLaughlin, Anna Venetone, Eddie Hunt, Sharon Priscilla Vieira, a great artist and singer. In fact, she's the one that made this for us here.
Wow.
She's awesome. She's also a photographer, and she's willing to do that for anybody that wants it. But everybody's loving the show. I will get back to some questions. You know what? Let's do this. Let's focus a little bit on let's change this up a little bit. Let's focus a little bit on your music, and then come back to this.
All right.
Because you said you're currently playing in a band.
Yeah.
And you guys play classic rock.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's called Blue Sky Band. I've been with them for 15 years
That's
now.
awesome.
And we do everything for charity. The charity has to pay our sound engineer because we won't pay without a sound engineer, and we won't play without,
right.
They make you sound good.
Right.
And we've played for, American Cancer Society, and we've done big fundraisers for, any kind of childhood disease. We've raised about $1.5 million in the last 15 years, and we never seek out a gig. People just contact one of us in the band, and if the band agrees to do it, we do it. And it's been a lot of fun. But we do a lot of almond. We're named Blue Sky after the Allman Brothers.
Of course,
you're my blue sky,
yeah,
you're
of
my
course.
sunny day. That we do that song. That's our signature song. But I sing a lot of Van Morrison and Stones and Beatles, and we do all that stuff. Neil
Sounds
Young,
like a great time.
Clapton. That was the good stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
and
great stuff.
I play bass and rhythm guitar and sing.
And who are some of the other people in the band?
Well,
if you can want to, give them a shout out.
Man, one of our lead guitarists is a world-renowned neurologist. His name's Dr. David Long.
Wow.
He works at Bryn Mawr Rehab, and he's been written up in Philly Magazine as one of Philly's top docs.
Nice.
And we practice at his house. He's got this great room that's all acoustically, sound, and his wife can't even hear us upstairs. At least I don't think. And then our drummer builds very high-end homes. Todd Pollig Builders. They built the CEO of QVC's house.
Oh, wow. That's
and,
pretty cool.
That's a nice.
Yeah.
I won't say little home. It's a nice big. So they build high-end homes. He's a big time, but one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet. He'd give you the shirt off his back. Another guy was an engineer for years with Zex, which is located right by QVC in Westchester. We have a couple bankers. Like one guy's an executive VP with Meridian Bank.
Oh, nice.
It's an eclectic mix of guys.
Yeah.
And the guy with Meridian Bank is an awesome sax player. Man, he can blow. He's really good, Joe Cofarcio. So one guy has his own PT business, physical therapy business, and that's how I got in the band. He was treating my back, and we'd talk about music. And he and I got together at a neighbor's house one time, and I brought my acoustic, and he brought his, and we were doing all kinds of songs. And he said, "You need to come and sit in with my band." And I went that first practice, and they kept inviting me back ever since. 15 years.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. We're going to get back to the information, the questions. But are you ready to get back to them?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned a little bit earlier about how the medical. Could you tell me about how the Hurricane of Love affected the medical personnel who treated your lovely wife, Beth?
After when my wife made the decision to stop treatments, and we had a wonderful doctor, and she didn't want to give up. She wanted to keep going, and Beth.
So they can see the book.
When we came
to the camera.
Yeah, thanks. Here's the book. It's got a picture of
Not
me
too
and my
close,
wife
back,
on it.
back,
There it
little.
is.
There.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
That's
a little
me.
bit back, a little bit more.
That's me on the left kissing
That's
Beth.
beautiful, beautiful.
Beth is looking
thanks, honey.
into the camera. And Hurricane of Love, you can get it at Amazon. It's $18 for the paperback. The hardcover is $29.99, and you can get the ebook for like $4.99. So, or you can go to hurricaneoflove.com. That's a great place because you can watch an interview I did about the book. But she really had an impact on all the people who treated her. After we came out of the hospital from Philadelphia. When they sent her home, her doctor wanted her, she set up for her to get platelets. My wife needed platelets because the chemo actually destroyed her bone marrow's ability to produce platelets, and we need platelets to live. That's what clogs your blood if you get a cut. And you and I, Gene, a healthy person's platelets are anywhere between 150,000 to 400,000 per milliliter, platelets per milliliter of the blood. Hers crashed to 3,000. So we're 150,000 to 400,000. Hers crashed to 3,000. They gave her a bag of platelets. It went down further to 2,300, and it was like danger. That's when she was in a hospital out by where QVC is. And that's when they wanted her down in Philadelphia. They said, we got to get this under control. It was like code blue. And so after she came home, her doctor arranged for her to have platelets, get them in Valley Forge, which is not too far from where I live. And we went once. In fact, I had a guy, I needed a ramp built because they had to come and get her by stretcher and take her out. And this is an example of true friendship. A guy named Brian Law, a builder friend of mine, I called him on a Monday. I said, Brian, I'm bringing Beth home from the hospital tomorrow. Do you know how to build a ramp? And he goes, of course. And I go, do you think you could get it done this week? He said, I'll do it today. He said, I'm pushing all my jobs back.
Beautiful.
I'm going to build your ramp today. And that's a true friend. And the sad thing is, Gene, we used it once to take her out, and then we brought her back. And then the next day when she got her platelets, the next day she called me in and my daughters in and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And at that point, I had to say, you're calling the shots. It's your life. I couldn't tell her. I wanted her selfishly to keep going because I didn't want to lose her. I had to tell her it was okay. And then we brought in hospice. Right. And then the only other time we used the ramp was when they took her out when she had passed. So, but that was a friend. He came and built the ramp that day. And, it was hard. It was hard to say goodbye. But my wife wasn't afraid to die. She was seeing glimpses
some people
of
just
heaven.
seem to accept it. I mean, I think it's harder for the people around them to accept it than it is for the person to accept it.
Oh, you're right. It is. It's harder for those of us left behind. Yeah. She knew where she was going. She was seeing heaven. I mean, Gene, her eyes were fixed on this corner of our bedroom, and one day, it was near the end, but she could still talk. And I said, "What are you seeing, Beth?" And she said, "Heaven." Wow. I said, "Is it beautiful?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And it's like words she couldn't describe, but she had this look on her face. And when my brother-in-law came into the room, he's a pastor, and he did her service. By the way, you can watch her service. It's on YouTube. It's called Beth Wheeler's Celebration of Life. 40,000 people have watched it. Wow. And he tells this story when he sat on the bed, and he said, "How are you doing, Beth?" And she said, "Well, Ron, I'm sad. I don't want to leave everyone, but I'm not afraid. I know where I'm going, and I'm going to be okay." And she faced it fearlessly. She was the example of how it's done right. And but I tell you, when she finally decided she was going to stop treatment, I had to call her doctor. And I said, Doctor, I'll just call her Dr. Kind, or actually I forget what I call her in the book. I said, Beth has decided to stop treatment. She said, "No, I'll arrange for the platelets to come to your house if I have to." "No, she can't." And I said, I'll call her Dr. B. I said, "Dr. B, she's done. And this isn't me, and it isn't your decision, it's hers." And she said, "Can I talk to her?" Because she said, "Dan, she is my favorite patient of all time." Aww. My entire 30-plus year career. Wow. She is my all-time favorite patient. And I stood there, and I could hear both sides of the conversation as my wife thanked her for everything she'd done. She said, "I know you did everything, doctor. You gave me great care. Your whole staff, I love you." And then I heard the doctor say, "Beth, you're my favorite patient. It's been an honor and a privilege to care for you." And she wasn't the only one. After she passed, I got a card from a lot of the nurses down at the big hospital we were in for a few weeks there at the end in Philadelphia. They sent me a card, and one nurse named Stephanie loved my wife. In fact, the nurses would literally come in early to fight over who was going to care for Beth Wheeler.
Amazing.
Who was going to, because she was their favorite patient. And this woman, Stephanie, wrote in this card, she said, "Beth Wheeler helped me rediscover why I went into nursing in the first place." Wow. She said, a lot of patients are tough. This was the sweetest, kindest lady, had so much respect and love for everybody. So when I say her love swept through the halls of medical clinics, doctors' offices, hospitals, that's not an exaggeration. It really did. Her life, one life, can impact so many. And her life's still impacting people through this book. This was the last thing I could do for her. But not only are you going to learn about Beth, you're going to learn about faith and how we saw so many miracles. It is literally filled with miracles. A buddy in my band, Gene, maybe we can talk about this later, but he actually saw an angel in my driveway one night. That was a wild experience. In fact, one of the guys that's going to call in, they might be calling in now, Brian.
There's nobody manning the phone.
Oh, we got nobody manning the board?
But they will.
Okay.
They're coming back. They're just
hey,
picking
Brian
my
and
daughter
Terry,
up.
call in. Do you ever give out the number for people to call in?
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to give it out. It's can you check the phone, honey, and make sure that anybody's calling in? It's 609-807-2492. 609-807-2492. Okay, no calls.
Okay. I wonder if I gave that right number to you guys. I'm going to turn my phone back on. But anyway.
It's all right. I'll put it in. When I get my phone back, I'll put it on the thing.
Do you want to hear the angel story?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, so
I'm enjoying it. But let me say, I'm just fascinated that the way you're portraying everything.
Yeah.
And it's like a Christmas, to me, it's almost like a Christmas miracle. All the stuff that's happened around this beautiful
I'm gonna
woman.
leave a book for you and your wife. I'll sign it.
And please sign it.
I want you to read it and hear your thoughts about it.
Absolutely. I will.
But so one night, my buddy Brian, who's listening in, and he's going to be calling in, he's one of my best friends in the whole world. In fact, my two best friends, Brian and Terry, now help me in Fearless Faith Ministries. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, "Look, Dan, when you need me, call me and I'll be there." Brian lives in Pasadena, California. So he said, when you need me, I call. I called him on a Friday night, Gene. I said, "I need you," because Beth has stopped treatment. She'll be passing soon. And he was at my house the next night from California. That's a friend. And so I was at the point where I was calling all my friends to ask them to go to the airport because the Philadelphia airport's over an hour from my house too. And I wanted to be with Beth, her final days. I didn't want to leave her for a second. So I thought randomly calling people, say, can you go pick up this person? Here's their flight information. But I called a buddy in my band, our lead singer, John Spangenberg, who's the guy that got me into the band. And I said, can you go pick up my buddy Brian? And Brian's a musician, and John is a musician. I didn't even realize that they were the perfect fit. So they show up late Saturday night. It's probably close to midnight, and I go out, and we're all talking in my driveway. And I noticed John, the guy in my band, is looking at me kind of weird and not saying much. And after they left, I said to Brian, Brian, was John okay on the way from the airport? He said, yeah, he talked my ear off. We had a great time. I said, well, that's odd because he wasn't saying much. Did you notice? And he goes, yeah, I did. I said, well, maybe he was just tired. And we walked in and went to bed. And so the next day, my sister, I go out to the kitchen to get some coffee, and she said, you have to call John because Dana, our neighbor, called, who John works with, and said, John needs to talk to Dan. So I called John. I'm like, what's up? John said, I need to talk to you. I saw something last night. I said, okay, come over after work. I'll sit in your car and talk. He comes over, and we sit down. He goes, Dan, I know I've done a lot of drugs in my time from my rock and roll days. He goes, and maybe I still do. He said, but I know what I saw last night. I was completely sober, and I said, well, what did you see? He said, well, as you were talking, this being appeared right over you. And I said, a being? What do you mean? He said, well, it was bright and it was sparkly. And he used his hands like this. It was so sparkly. It was like light dancing off of water. And he said, I couldn't look at you. It was so bright I had to look away. I thought it was going to burn my eyes. And I said, well, what did it look like? He said, well, it had a cloak on and I couldn't see a face, but it looked like it was wearing a robe. But the brightness, it was like brighter than the sun. And he said, I looked back and it was gone. But as you were talking, it appeared right over you. It was probably 9 to 10 feet tall. And again, it was so bright, I had to look away. I couldn't even look at you. And he said, when I looked, it was gone and then didn't come back. And I said, well, John, what do you think it was? And he said, I'm not a spiritual being, but I think it was an angel. I said, I know it was, John, because we've been having prayer meetings, and they're all around this house. Beautiful. And my sister, we walked in, and she said, how come John got to see it and we didn't? And I said, we don't need to see an angel. We believe. The Bible says we walk not by faith. We walk not by sight, but by faith. I said, I know they're here. I don't need to see it. But John saw it, and it's changed his life. And that's the title of that chapter is called An Angel in My Driveway. And it was funny because when he left, I went over and stood in the spot where I was, and I thought, wow, what did he see? It must have been amazing. Yeah. And I realized he'd been given a gift to be able to see that in the spiritual dimension. And as I walked into the house, I realized I had been given a gift because it was my birthday. My birthday is October 26th. My wife passed on the 30th. It was just a few days before, and it was my birthday. And when I walked in, and it was the saddest birthday I ever had, but we had little cupcakes with candles in it. But another miracle. But I wanted to make sure, Brian and Terry, that I gave you the right number. So what's the number again?
609.
609.
807.
807.
2492.
Oh, he said, B, I guess we're on hold. Nobody answered. Okay, guys, call back.
All right, you know what? Plug the book. I'll go check over
Okay. So let me make sure I gave them the right number to call. Let's see, Brian and Terry. I thought I sent you guys the number. Let's see. Okay, 609-807-2492. Is that correct? I don't know why. Yeah. That's correct, Gene. 609-807-2492. Brian and Terry, if you're watching, call right now. Oh, we had a technical problem.
Yeah, Skype logged us out.
Oh, Skype logged us out. So Gene's going to log us back in. Hey, you know what? This is like live TV, guys, which I love. I loved QVC because I never knew what was going to happen, but I'd always have to be able to take it. But I want to tell you that the book, a portion of the proceeds of the book, my proceeds are going to go to help fund my ministry. I started a ministry called Fearless Faith. And if you're on Facebook, you can go there right now. Just put in Fearless Faith, and you'll see 3 orange flames. And then if you go there, you'll see my picture with 2 other guys, 3 good-looking guys. We're actually all dressed up. and that's Fearless Faith, and that's where you can get your morning cup of inspiration. Here we go. Okay, we're ready. Let's take that caller. Hello, you're live on the Talking with Doc G show. I'm Dan Wheeler. Who's this?
Hey, this is Terry.
Hey, Terry. I'm glad you got through. This is Terry Steen. He's one of my partners.
And if you go there, you'll see my picture with two other guys. Good-looking guys. We're actually all dressed. And that's Fearless Faith, and that's where you can get your...
Okay, that's my audio from about a minute ago.
Okay, let's take that caller.
Oh, you're listening to the audio. As everybody does that.
Oh, hey, Terry, can you hear me?
Turn the audio down.
Hi, kid.
Yeah, turn your audio down. That's we're getting foldback. I used to have to tell people on QVC that.
All the time.
Yeah, turn the audio down if you're listening to me. So
Feedback.
Feedback.
Can you hear me now, Dan?
I can hear you,
You sound
Terry.
real clear, Terry. Yeah.
So, Terry, I was just telling
Okay.
people about Fearless Faith. If they go to FFM 60, why don't you tell them how we formed Fearless Faith and what we're all about? Would you mind?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I've got Brian on the phone also. So
Oh,
I
really?
think we're all three here.
Hey, Brian, how you
sir.
doing? Hey, buddy. So Brian's from Pasadena, California.
Beautiful.
Terry's down in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And through the magic of electronics and Hamilton Radio, way to go, Gene. You did it.
Beautiful.
We brought you guys together.
And we can add more calls too.
So, Brian, I was just telling the story about John and the angel, but I'm going to have Terry
heard
first. I'm going to have Terry first tell us about Fearless Faith, and then I'll hear your version. So, Terry, tell everybody how we formed.
Well, it was really neat because Dan and I don't know if he mentioned this, Dan and I were college roommates and met way back in 1973 and have been great friends ever since. And back in college, we had times when we would host variety shows and just did a lot of fun stuff together and knew that at some point we'd like to work together. His career took a direction in communications. Mine was more business, and we didn't know how we'd bring it back together. But after Beth passed and Dan realized that he wanted to shift gears and get into ministry, most of my life has been in ministry, but more on the business side. He took Brian and I to breakfast one day and shared his heart and his vision for wanting to do more for the kingdom of God, wanting to do something ministry-wise, and asked if we'd be open and want to be a part of what he was doing. And we just both really felt in our spirits that that was the right thing to do, and both jumped on it, and we're excited about what God could do and wanted to do through us and give us a chance to get back and do some stuff together. So that was about 3 years ago, and boy, we have had quite a ride and have been loving every minute of it.
Boy, we have. And just so you know, and everybody knows, the two guys that are on the phone right now, we met 45 years ago on the campus of what is now Evangel University. It was Evangel College. Terry and I played baseball together. We were on baseball scholarships, and Brian had graduated the year before, and he came my first week on campus, came to my dorm, and all three of us have been really, really best friends since. And so it was so great that they stayed with me after everyone had left, and I took them out to lunch. And Brian, remember when I took you out to lunch and I told you guys what I was up to, and you both just said, we want to help you. And I don't even remember. I guess I'd been doing a lot of video on Facebook through QVC, so we thought, why not start out on social media? And that's how we formed Fearless Faith, right?
Yeah, we put Fearless Faith together, and we were trying to figure out for about 6 months or 4 months or so what to do, where we could be best utilized. And the social media idea came up, and we had a conference call one day and just went right to making a Facebook page, just creating one, and we just started putting up just these little slides like in some verses and that. And then Dan said, you're going to get more bang for your buck here if you could put video on. We're going to be able to reach more people. And he's absolutely right. We started doing video, and then we decided on doing 2 apiece each week. And it just developed. It grew on its own. We weren't promoting it. It just started growing on its own. So we found our niche and found a need. And it's just an honor to serve like this. And when you read the comments, and you can be down one day, man. If you read those comments, it puts you right back in the saddle. You know where you're supposed to be and why we're there.
Yeah, you know, Dr. G, Doc G, I guess I should go.
Yeah, Doc G, yeah.
We now have over 23,000 followers and almost 22,000 likes. But every day, our videos, like yesterday, I did a video, and I think 5,700 people have viewed it. So it's like a big church on social media, but we're not like ministers. We just share over a cup of coffee. You know, we struggle with the same thing everybody else. We are not any better than anybody else. I mean, we're all sinners, you know. And I struggle. I hit my hand with a hammer. Sometimes a bad word will slip out. But we want to go in the right place. We want to inspire people in their faith to say, you know, hold on to God, man, because after this life is over, you got to be ready to meet your Maker. And you know, Terry, you've been in ministry. How is Fearless Faith different from any other ministry you've been involved with?
Well, it's so unique. I've worked with ministries. I've worked with churches, been on staff in churches. I now consult with churches. But this unique niche is something that can become so personal because through social media, you're able to reach into an individual's home. And they're looking at you eye to eye, and you have a one-on-one opportunity to really minister and speak into an individual's heart. And so it's just incredible, and I still shake my head to think that this opportunity's presented itself, that God would use us. And you know, as you know, and you may want to talk about, we're really kind of realizing that there's a strong focus to the baby boomer to try to encourage them to not retire, but to find what God and how God can use them, and then begin doing it. Whatever you have to offer it, and God will use it in an incredible way. And that's what the three of us have done, and it's so fun to watch how God's using it and ministering and touching people's lives.
Well, you know, Doug,
I think what's really been great too, though, is that the community is built. You get people that ask for specific prayer requests, and people in the community just jump on it. They're all wanting to pray with people and help them, and it's just amazing how this has just evolved to that. But we're so proud of these folks too, because they're not just sitting back; they're making this part of their ministry too.
You know, guys, Doc G was just saying, because he agrees with us. Baby boomers, you know. There's no word in the Hebrew language for retire, and I heard a rabbi say that not long ago, and that's our philosophy. Like, don't retire to a life of leisure or the golf course. I mean, it's okay to have a good time.
I'm working harder now than I ever did.
You are, but you're doing something you love.
I love.
You're doing it passionate. You should see this guy. He's put together this whole radio station.
Me and Ruben too.
And Ruben. Way to go, Ruben. And they've got, like, I don't know, 12 microphones in here, guys. We could get a band.
Two sets.
Ruben is the man. And this is like a second new career for you, right? So don't retire. And that is our message with Fearless Faith. We want to say, now you have the resources to really do something important, to mentor the younger generation coming up, to pass on your values, to teach them about God, to teach them about faith. And I'm just so thankful these two guys joined me. But and that's the message in the book. The book has a chapter called The Birth of Fearless Faith and how we got together. And all my contact information is in the book, how to contact us at Fearless Faith. You can go to FFM60 on Facebook. And we also have an Instagram page under Fearless Faith. The book is called Hurricane of Love, My Journey with Beth Wheeler. And if you go to Amazon, look it up. Put in Hurricane of Love and read what people are saying about the book. It's exciting, Doc G, for me to see how it's affecting people's lives, that my wife is still able to affect people. Even though
and that's the best part about it, because even though she's gone from here, she's not gone from the universe, because we're energy, right? The energy of her is still here.
Well, I still feel her at times. I still hear her whispering into my ear, but I know she's in heaven. She's looking down on us. And Brian, you knew Beth really well. I mean, Terry, you knew her somewhat, but because of our distance, we weren't able to get together as much. But Brian was there when I met Beth. How would you describe, I mean, Hurricane of Love, that's kind of what she was, right, book. Brian?
Absolutely. She was a hurricane of love, specifically because she did not meet anybody that she didn't really enjoy being around that I know of. She would look at a person's heart. She never looked at them physically or mentally or just for judging somebody right by the book by its cover. She would look into a person's heart, and then she would find love in everybody. And it was just amazing. Even at the funeral, more people were coming up to Dan and saying that she's my best friend. She was my best friend. And some of these folks, Dan said, I didn't even know she was associating with her. Maybe she talked to you once or twice. But they all considered her best friend because that's just the way she made everybody feel.
Wow. That's a great way to put it, Brian. It's true. I wrote in the book that I know of at least 24 people that considered her their very best friend. And she had that ability to do it. And, you know, Terry, I was talking earlier about I want people to love their spouses and appreciate their spouses. And I was saying there's days that your spouse maybe isn't your favorite person. In fact, maybe they're your least favorite person that day. But people have to realize that, you know, time is short and you've got to express that love and you've got to share that love. And I'd give anything to be able to tell Beth again in person that I love her. What's your message to guys about that?
Well, you know, you're so right, and the reality is that love is a choice, you know, and we hear that, but that's not always easy, you know. We're just by nature selfish, so we tend to want what we want, and until we can figure out the importance of the compromise, I've done a couple weddings, and I've in the vows that I would, or not the vows, but in the ceremony that I would share with the bride and groom, I'd always tell them a marriage is not a 50-50 proposition. If you think it's 50-50 and you're only coming halfway, you're going to fall short. Yeah. A marriage is a 100-100. If you're not seeking to give everything you have to make it work,
good, isn't it? Good
it's
stuff.
It's going to be a battle.
Preach it, Pastor Terry.
And you've got to give your all. And so it's a choice. It's something that you work at every day. And if God's given you that spouse, then he'll give you the reward and the benefit for your efforts.
You know, Gene, you don't think about it. I mean, I never thought this was going to happen to me. I never thought my wife would get stage 4 cancer.
Right.
And after she passed, you know, you think about all the times when maybe you weren't the best husband, and maybe, you know, I thought about times where I said things out of anger, and man, you can't get that back.
You feel guilty. I know. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, but you got to tell them at the end of the day. My wife and I always had a thing. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "Do not let the sun set on your anger," and we would always get it right by the end of the day. One of us would apologize.
You know what's funny is last Christmas there was an issue with something between me and my wife, and I just couldn't get over it, and I just stopped talking to her, and I felt so bad about it, and it happened in Christmas, and you know everybody else around us didn't know because you're covering it up, but we were going through a lot of different things, and what I took from that was the same thing you just said. Over the 26 years I've been married, that was the first year that I actually didn't talk to her for a while. And it got me nowhere. I was still wrong in the end. And what I want to tell people is, you know, you work it out. Communication skills is number one with a marriage. But I live to say, you know, let her be right.
Yeah.
You know, let her be right. What does it hurt, right?
Right.
Now, what's my new philosophy, Ruben? Whatever she says.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
I used to say, happy wife, happy life.
And that is so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
Because other than that, if you're searching for something that's not there, you're not going to find it. It's not there. Everybody has issues with mental health. Everybody has medical issues. And just any issue. You know, financial. And when you look at the whole picture together, what you're searching for out there, there's no human being out there that doesn't have these issues.
Right.
So what you're looking for is a compromise of who treats you, respects you, who loves you, who will be there for you at all times. And somebody that doesn't steal from you, somebody that, you know, will work with you on certain things. And to me, that's the perfect spouse. That's the perfect mate.
You know, I sometimes want to shake men and say, love your spouse, be
Right.
good, because there's going to come a day when you won't be able to tell them. There's going to come a day when you can't have that cup of coffee with them. But I'm so glad my partners joined me
they're
for a
awesome
while.
guys, too.
And do you mind if I ask him one
No,
more
please,
thing?
no,
I don't want to take over your show.
I love that he's doing that because he's your host anyway.
Well, you
so
know,
go
I'm so
ahead.
used to
No, that's
interviewing.
fine. Go ahead.
Hey,
Yes.
Terry and Brian, I'm going to ask you each this, and whoever wants to jump in first, go ahead. But, you know, people always ask me what the book Hurricane of Love is about, and I say, well, it's really a love story. It's about my wife who had this unbelievable ability to love that we could all envy. It's about some moments done right, and it's really about being in the present. But you guys both read the book, and what would you say the main messages are in the book? Don't both jump in at once.
Go ahead, B.
No, well, you know, it's got so many different messages in it. That's just it. It's hard to pinpoint one down. I always tell Dan, I said, this book is evergreen. It's going to last forever because it just touches so many different things. It talks about family. It talks about relationship. It talks about loving one another. It just is everything that you would experience in life is going to be mentioned in this book, and it's something that you can lean on. And that's one thing that's impressed me about it, and how to read it. Mayor Karen Best in Branson, she said it best.
Branson,
she goes,
Missouri.
I laughed, I cried, I laughed, I cried, I laughed, I cried. And it was that way through the whole book. But yet I said I read it in one day. When Dan sent it over to me, I started in the morning, and I said, I got to ready to make dinner because my wife's going to be home anytime now. And I finished it right before I was getting ready to make dinner. But I couldn't put it down. I wanted to keep reading it. And I knew most of the stories, if not all of them that were in there. And still, it just intrigued me, and it just grabbed me. And it made me feel, when it was finished, I know my wife's listening to this too, and she could tell you this, that I felt that, like Dan said, you had to do more, you had to give more, take less, and you had to put that other person first. And you realize that when you see what he went through, and with Beth, and how he had to discover that. And yet I have time now, and Terry has time now where Dan doesn't. But he taught us lessons through that, and that's what I got out of the book especially.
Yeah, I remember you saying to me that it made you want to just go hug and love on Deb, your wife. And that made me feel good because, you know, and again, that's Beth inspiring people.
Beautiful.
But thanks, Brian. What would you say, Terry, what were your main takeaways?
Well, I would say threefold. One, beautiful memorial to Beth and her life, and something that can perpetuate over the years and always be remembered. And so that was a beautiful thing if it didn't do anything else. But secondly, it becomes a marriage handbook because you went through a very, very tough time, and that's when you learn most of your life lessons is while you're going through a tough time. So you were able to be transparent enough to share the lessons that you learned specifically regarding your relationship with Beth and how you dealt with the guilt and everything that went with going through a tough time during your marriage. And then the third one is just basically a grief manual. You knew and you walked through it. As you know, there are so many people that are walking through grief, walking through death, walking through sickness, and sometimes just don't know how to handle it, don't know if they're the only ones that have ever been through this. And this book helps them, helps them realize that they're not alone.
Amen. Hey guys, can you both hear me?
Yeah.
I just got a letter from the 700 Club saying they're going to have me on.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Hallelujah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. They said they were very excited, and they gave me about 10 dates to choose from.
Beautiful.
And they're going to fly me down, put me up in hotels, so I'm going to be – thank you, God.
That's you're gonna sell big time on there.
Weren't we just talking about this morning, Dan?
Yeah, we were. Wow, I've got tears in my eyes. I was on a national show, Jay Sekulow.
I seen the thing for it.
And I just got a text from Jay. Jay is a pretty big guy. He's chief counsel to the President of the United
Right.
States. He
Right.
he usually does stuff on politics, but he just said he's rerunning my show again on Christmas Day.
Beautiful. Oh, that's
So-
beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a day of good news. But Terry and Brian, I gotta say before we let these guys go, Doc G, that if anyone's blessed to have two friends like these,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a blessing. I'm a blessed man. These guys, I think the three of us would say we'd take a bullet for the other one. We'd go, but they were there for me, and they've been there for me, and they caught hold of the feeling that life is short and you got to do something. They
Yeah.
both love God. They love the Lord with all their heart.
Wow.
And they just work tirelessly, and they make Fearless Faith happen. So I hope you and your wife will join us on Facebook, and once in a while check out our Morning Cup of Inspiration.
I do.
Ruben,
I do watch
you too,
it.
do you? Yeah. So it's been great. And guys, I'm so glad you joined us today. Should we let them go, or do you want to keep them on? It's your show.
They can go. We've got some more questions, but you guys, thank you very much for being here for Dan. It meant a lot to him.
Oh, thank
Hey,
you.
our pleasure. It's been a blast. Thanks.
Hey, you guys would like this guy. I got a feeling, Doc G, you're an old rock and roller.
I am. I used to play the bass.
I'm going to have to get my band in here, and maybe we'll jam.
I haven't played. I used to play the trumpet, but I
Yeah?
haven't played in
Really?
probably 30 years.
Well, we'll have to get him playing again. Hey, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was
Our
really cool,
pleasure.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Keep
Doc.
listening and share this video for everybody.
Yeah,
please.
share it on your Facebook, the link that I put up, okay?
Will do.
All right.
I'll do some more shout outs too, and then we'll get back
See
to
you
more
guys.
questions.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Want to give a shout out to Shay Farrell, a comedian.
Oh, really?
Carmen Benella Melendez, Doug Max, another comedian. Maureen Lynch, who had a show here yesterday, who is the Jersey Shore Angel.
Really?
And she's kind of been predicting everything that's been happening to us, Hamilton Radio, me and Ruben,
Wow.
our lives. And I don't think it's more of a medium. I think it's more that, she's in touch with God.
Wow.
And she's a beautiful person. But I just shared it with literally everybody I know, but a lot of them are busy and, they may see it another time. But this is a shout out to everybody, all the celebrities and friends of
thanks
both
for
parties.
joining
Yeah,
us.
because
Yeah.
we love everybody,
Yeah.
and when Dan comes here to this place, and we've had some big people here. We really
Yeah.
have had big
Yeah.
people.
You
I
said
have
you-
not
yeah.
been so big as you, because you are a man of God. You're a man of love. You're full of everything, and I'm in awe by you.
Oh, Doc G, thank you. I mean, honestly, I gotta say it's not me. I've done some things in my life I'm not proud of. I've screwed up. I made all the mistakes.
Oh, we all do. We're humans.
But I was
Everybody
so
does.
blessed. I considered it was such a privilege to be on QVC prime time, and I love that place. I got to interview every childhood hero I ever had. Guys like Joe DiMaggio,
Yeah, let's
Mickey
let's-
Mantle. You
let's
want to talk about
that? Let's
Sure.
talk about some
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the guests you interviewed, like Joe DiMaggio or people like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm friends with Lori Greener, and she's got a lot of things going on with Shark Tank and
Yeah,
QVC.
Lori. Sure.
Lori's a
I actually
sweetheart.
trained Lori.
She's a
her
sweetheart.
first day at QVC.
She's a sweetheart,
Yeah,
right?
she is. She is.
And-
I had a mutual friend, called me and said, Dan, I got this girl coming from Chicago. Her name's Lori Grenier. Can you help her? She doesn't know what she's doing. I'm like, sure. So Lori walks in with this little bowl. It was a plastic bowl, and it had these little chutes that you could fill with different colored marbles and stuff. And that was her product. So I worked with her, and she was really nervous and everything. And now look at her. I mean, yeah,
She's
Shark Tank.
amazing.
She's made so much money, and I've golfed with her and Dan, her husband. They're great people.
Wow.
But you talk about people. I mean, Joe DiMaggio had not done an interview in 7 years. And I got a call in 1992. I'd only been with QVC a couple years, and they said, guess what? You're going to interview Joe DiMaggio. I said, you're kidding me, right? They said, no. Back in the 90s, sports memorabilia was huge. And
Yeah, I remember that,
Every
yeah,
week
yeah.
I had a show with a different Hall of Famer on.
Oh,
So
wow.
I interviewed every childhood hero I ever had. But Joe DiMaggio, nobody got DiMaggio. He didn't do interviews. He didn't like interviews. He was one of these guys. He was kind of jealous of the ball players today because he was Joe DiMaggio, and he only signed one contract for $100,000 in 1950, and he was upset about that. And he was born during the Depression. He was a Depression baby, and so he never gave. He never knew the joy of giving. When he died, he was like this miserable man that hoarded everything. In fact, he's got millions locked up in a fund that nobody can touch. His grandkids get just a stipend every month. It's just a small amount. The money's not doing any good. He always had people with him who would pick up the bill. Right. Or they'd walk into a restaurant, if it was an Italian restaurant, they'd send the owner over, and Joe would sign him a headshot, knowing that for that, the owner would say, "Oh, you don't have to pay, it's on me." And he never wanted to pay, never wanted to part with the money. I say he didn't know the joy of giving. But so he wanted to meet me at 1 in the afternoon. The show was at 7 at night, and I figured it would be a 10-minute meeting. I figured he'd tell me not to ask about Marilyn Monroe, which I knew, because I'd seen other interviews, and if they asked him about Marilyn Monroe, he would get up, take the mic off, and walk out. Interview done. Right. I knew not to ask him about Joe Jr. He had a son that died of alcoholism shortly after he died at the age of 58. Joe Jr. never felt like Joe accepted him because he wasn't an athlete. He had her with his first marriage, right? Dorothy Arnold. The only time he said he ever showed affection to him was at Marilyn Monroe's funeral in the Hearst. Joe reached over and grabbed his son's hand. That was the only time. And so it's a sad story. But I show up, I'm waiting. Security calls me and says, "Mr. DiMaggio's waiting for you. He's in green room A." So I walk down, I walk in, and I go, "Mr. DiMaggio, what an honor." And he goes, "First of all, call me Joe." I go, "Okay, Mr. DiMaggio." He goes, "No, call me Joe." I go, "Okay, Joe." And then he introduces me to one other guy that was in the green room, a guy named Barry Helper, who was part owner of the New York Yankees at the time. So cool, yeah. The Helper collection, his baseball collection, was sold at Lloyd's of London for $23 million. Wow. This guy had, you know how when you go to a dry cleaners and they hit a button and all the clothes come by? This guy had game-worn jerseys on a dry cleaning system of Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, the greatest names of all time. Babe Ruth, he had game-worn jerseys. And so he introduces me to Barry Helper, and we're talking baseball. He goes, "Dan, let's talk baseball." I go, "One of my favorite subjects, Mr. DiMaggio." Now, when I found out I was going to have him on, I spent 3 weeks at the library. I read everything ever written on Joe DiMaggio. I knew more about him than he did. And so,
you forgot a lot,
but
probably.
It's something to sit there with a legend like DiMaggio, and he's telling me about his rookie year, his first game. He said he was all nervous because the day before, there was a guy with a megaphone going around in between innings going, "Join us tomorrow to see the incredible premiere of Joe DiMaggio, rookie. He's going to make his debut." And he's like, it was making him nervous. He's like, they're giving me all this publicity. What if I strike out 3 times? And he didn't. He was 3 for 3, had a triple and a couple singles. And then, to watch his face light up, talking about the old days and Ted Williams and how
memories,
Ted
Mickey,
were.
Mickey,
yeah. And so, I figured it'd be a 10-minute meeting. Well, at 10 to 7 at night, I met him at 1. The producer comes in and says, "Dan, we got to get you guys out on the set." We talked for 6 hours. We went out on the show, did a 3-hour show, which was the most successful sports show in the history of electronic retailing. Wow. Did over $1 million. And did 3 hours there. And after the show, he wanted to talk to me for another hour. And we did, and he left, and he shook my hand. I had him sign my little card. Well, a week later, a dozen autographed Joe DiMaggio baseballs showed up at my house. He told the memorabilia company he wanted to sign some special balls for me. So I've given some of them to charity, and the rest are locked up in a bank in a lockbox. I won't tell you where.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
No. So Mickey Mantle.
I get that.
I worked with Mickey Mantle a lot, and I've got to tell you, he was a pain in the butt to work with. He was an alcoholic, and he would often drink. We always had to have another athlete. In fact, we usually had Billy Martin and Whitey Ford on with Mickey because he'd be fine for an hour, but he'd always have a 7-7 on set, look like water. And after an hour, he'd be gone. He was like comatose. So then we'd go to Billy and Whitey, and Mickey would just sit there. But Mickey was hard to work with. He used to call women terrible names, and I got to work with him one last time after he'd come out of Betty Ford. Oh, the first time I worked with him, 1989, it was at his restaurant in New York. We were doing a remote, and Billy Martin and Whitey and Mickey were going to be my guests, and I didn't know Mickey at all, and so we're in this area, and it's all roped off, and there's security, and I walked by the crowd, and this gentleman grabbed me by the arm, and he had a Yankees hat on. His little boy had a Yankees hat on, holding a baseball. He goes, Dan, we love Mickey. He's like our hero. It'd mean the world to us if he could sign this baseball. Would you mind asking him? And I said, okay. I didn't know Mickey. I go back. I asked him to sign the ball. It was like a scene out of The Exorcist. His head started spinning. He called me every curse word in the book.
Oh, boy.
And I said, it's okay, Mickey. Calm down. Okay, I'll tell him you can't. So I'm walking back, and I'm thinking, what am I going to tell this man and his son who love Mickey? And the little boy's looking up. So I walk up and I say, you know, Mickey feels really bad, because I figure he did, the way he was swearing at me and everything. I said, but he can't sign this baseball because the memorabilia company's here, and he's going to be selling his autograph for money, so he can't just give it away. And he wants you to know how sorry he is. I totally covered for him. Well, I worked with him for like the next 8 or 9 years. No, I take it back. It was only about 6 or 7 years. And in 1995, it was in the spring, and I had Mickey on, and the security guard calls me in the host lounge and says, Mickey's here, and but I got to warn you, he's mad as a hornet. Someone gave him the wrong time. And I said, calm him down. I'll be right down. On my way down, I'm thinking, what now? This guy is the biggest pain in my butt. I don't care if he's the greatest hero on the greatest sports team of all time. He's a pain to work with. So I walk in, and I go, Mickey, I don't know who told you the wrong time. I'm terribly sorry, but listen, we'll do the first hour together, and then if you have to leave, I'll do the next 2 by my own. It's okay. And he starts laughing. And he reaches out to me. Maybe you can see this on camera. And he hits me on the shoulder, and he says, oh, pard, I'm just joking with you. I'm here for the whole 3 hours. And Pard was short for partner. He's from Oklahoma. And I knew he only pulled practical jokes on people he really liked. I didn't even think he liked me. And I knew he only called people Pard that he liked. And I looked at the security guard, and the security guard's laughing. And he says, Dan, I need to talk to you. And he gets serious. And I go, okay, we can talk. He goes, no, in private. So the security guard leaves. We go into a makeup room. I walk in. Mickey closes the door. And when Mickey turns around, he has tears coming down his cheeks.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Mickey, what's wrong? Are you okay? And he said, I owe you an apology. I said, you don't owe me you're Mickey Mantle. He goes, no, I remember the time you asked me to sign that little boy's baseball, and I gave you a terrible time. I said, you do? You remember that? He goes, yeah. He goes, do you know why I hated signing autographs, really? And I said, no, why? He said, I had no self-esteem. He said, I never lived up to what I could have been. He said, I'm an alcoholic, and I realize it now. I just come out of Betty Ford, and so what, I could hit a baseball. I said, Dan, I never lived up to my potential. Sad. He goes, when I hurt my knee my rookie year, the only way I could kill the pain, they didn't have arthroscopic surgery. I was in pain. I deadened it with alcohol. He goes, my sons became alcoholics. It's the only way I knew how to relate to my sons. He had 4 sons. 2 of them, one died at 38, and the other died at 45 from complications due to the liver, due to drinking. So Mickey said, I am so sorry. And he said, Dan, I was just at a Christmas party this last Christmas for IBM. They paid me $60,000 to show up for half hour. Pretty good money, huh? I wouldn't mind making that, just to shake a few hands.
Yeah.
He said, the president of IBM comes up to me and starts crying and says, you're my hero. I can't believe you're Mickey Mantle. He goes, I felt like the biggest fake, the biggest fraud. Here's this guy, the president of IBM. He's smart. He created this company. He's leading this company. He goes, so what? I could hit a baseball. I'm nothing but alcoholic, Dan. I honestly have no self-esteem, and I apologize to you. And I thought, I went home last night. That was so profound to me, thinking, if America knew this guy's the greatest sports hero on the greatest sports franchise ever, and he had no self-esteem. Life's not about your fame and your fortune, and I had some of it, but Mickey was a rock star. I walked with him one time. I did an all-star game. I was at an all-star game, and they had this fan fest. It was in Baltimore, and I had to meet these guys in a specific room. It was a hidden, unmarked room, and there was security. And when they walked Mickey and I out to the set, and there was an eruption like I've never heard when people saw Mickey Mantle, I was thinking, wow, what must this be like? But the guy had no self-esteem.
Oh, that's a shame.
Can you believe it? So I actually wrote a book years ago called The Best Seat in the House. It's still available on Amazon.
Oh, really?
But I'm thinking of doing now, so Hurricane of Love is actually my second book. This book's a lot more meaningful to me because it was about my late wife.
Sure.
But you'll also learn some about my career and what it was like trying to go through the fact that my wife was dying of stage 4 cancer, and I had to go out every night and be this happy guy on QVC. But QVC is the greatest company in the world. I thank them. I love them, and keep shopping with them. But those are just a couple of my sports stories. I could tell you story after story.
I know we're gonna. Any other calls? Any calls coming in? He's listening to the show.
Oh, he's listening. What's the number? Should we go out the number?
609-807-2492.
I'd love to say hi to anyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people say they were trying to call in. Sandy Foley, Paula Joy Wild.
Call back.
Dodie Augustine, William Thomas Kane.
Ruben's on it now.
Colorado. Yeah.
Ruben's on it. Call back. Call back, please.
We get, see, me and him are like that. We get so involved in the shows.
Especially if there's a beautiful, wealthy, hot woman that's looking for a young guy an older guy. I'm kidding.
We do have a couple young girls here, and they have their own brand A.
Well, young to me is 50 these days. I'm 64, so
I get it.
When I'm 64, I finally turned the Beatles.
So that's why I want to ask you about your entertainment, because you could have went into the music side because you say a bass player.
Yeah. I don't think I was that good.
But even the best.
Yeah.
I mean, we just lost Joe Osborne.
Yeah.
And he was with a lot of bands, America, Linda Ronstadt, and he was with the Wrecking Crew, from the 60s.
Yeah.
So they did all them 60 songs for Phil Spector and everything.
Yeah.
So you could have went anywhere.
Well,
what made you decide to be a radio show, a TV show host?
It's funny because I was thinking of majoring in music in college. I actually had taken an IQ test, and I had my highest IQ was in music. But when I got to school, I loved everything, and I was into sports. I played baseball. I was on a scholarship, and I remember one day it was after my the first semester of my sophomore year, and they're like, "Dude, you got to declare a major." And if I didn't declare a major, I had nothing to take. I was going to lose my scholarship. So I felt like I prayed about it, and I felt like God gave me wisdom. I sat down, I took out 2 pieces of paper, and I put a line down the middle of it, and I put on one column I put strengths and weaknesses, and on the other paper I put likes and dislikes. And when I looked at my likes and my strengths, it spelled out communications. I loved all my speech classes, my writing classes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and those came easy to me. And I worked at the campus radio station. I always loved radio. I was Rip Rockin' Roll Real, Rabble Rosin, Randy Patata, Rockin' Teeth, Big about 5 o'clock, kids. Hey, what you doing this weekend? Why not go out to make out driving theater, kids? Hey, there's no lines, no waiting, no moving either. I used to do that. And then I got into TV right out of college. I was lucky. I was back for a homecoming. And one of my college professors said, hey, they're looking for help in their newsroom over at Channel 27, an ABC affiliate. And I went there. And I got the job, and within a month and a half, they fired the sportscaster, and the owner of the station asked me to audition, and I did. And then I came into work one day, and he goes, "Guess what? You're doing a live audition tonight on the news." I was like, "All right, let's do it." And it went great. And so at the age of 23, I was an on-air sportscaster in Springfield, Missouri. And then one thing led to another. You never kind of know where you're going to end up or the path that goes, but God had a path marked out for me, and I was very fortunate. The other thing I got to do on QVC was host a lot of the music shows. And so I launched albums for, Hall & Oates and people like Michael McDonald and, who else? It's so many. Willie Nelson. I've launched a lot with Willie. Willie wanted me to toke with him on his bus. And my band was really upset when I told him I said I couldn't because my social media person was on the bus taking pictures of us. That wouldn't work out so well. I'll show you some fun pictures here, though.
Boy, as times changed.
Yeah, here's me on the set with my one daughter with Willie.
Oh, nice. Yeah, really cool.
That was my wife.
Yeah.
That's me playing guitar on QVC.
Anson Williams. Anson Williams. Yeah,
Potsy,
friends
you're
with
the
him.
first guy that's gotten that right.
Really? Nobody
Potsy,
knows?
Yeah, nobody knows that's Anson.
Yeah, Anson.
He looks different. He's a good friend. Halle Berry.
Yeah, Halle, okay.
Joe
Namath, actually a friend of my cousin.
Duchess of York,
yeah.
royalties.
Yes. Oh, wow, yeah.
Launched a lot of their Alabama.
Alabama, yeah.
There's Michael.
Michael McDonald.
Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had Jose Feliciano. I got to play guitar. I got to play guitar with Jose
That is so cool.
Feliciano. He shows up like 2 weeks before the show, and he said, "I hear you play," and I go, "A little bit, but nothing like you." He hands me a guitar. He goes, "Play something." Fortunately, I knew his version of "Light My Fire," the chords.
Oh,
so
I
I
love
start
his
going
version.
to the chord. He goes,
Yeah.
"Good choice." He goes, "Give me a guitar." We sat and jammed for 20 minutes on "Light My Fire." I'm sitting there just playing the chords, and he's like, doodle 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 doodle. I'm going da 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 bum bum doodle doodle, and I'm watching him going, the guy's lightning, and he can't see. How does he do this? So I've had so many great experiences like that, Jane. We could talk for hours.
We're gonna have to have you back. I think
definitely.
I think Dan's gonna come back. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about his book. We're gonna summarize because we're gonna get ready to. We're gonna end it like around 1:15, maybe 10 of.
Okay.
But let's summarize a little bit more about the book. The overall feeling, of course, is love. I get that.
Yeah.
But how would you summarize it to somebody? Does this,
Well,
like you said, one here, it's a real good day.
Yeah, let me talk about that.
Yeah, talk about that and then go into it.
One of the chapters of the book is called "Today Was a Really Good Day," and this is really a testament to my wife, the kind of person she was, how positive she was. She had stopped treatment. Her body was filling with fluid. She knew she had days to live. And I was calling my friends and having people pick up. I was flying in family and friends from all over the country. I had a house full of people. And it was a Saturday night. It was the night Brian got in. And it was almost like a celebration. It was really weird. We had times that were really sad and a lot of people crying. But this night, it was kind of fun, and everybody was just telling stories about Beth. And when everybody left the room, it was about 11 at night, I turned out the light, and I reached over and kissed her goodnight. And she said to me, I told you our nickname was Cakeys. We'd called each other Cakeys. And she said, Cakeys, today was a good day. Today was a really good day. And I had tears in my eyes, and I thought, how profound. My wife is dying, and she knows it. And she was able to say, today is a really good day. So one of the things I do, Doc, in the book is at the end, a lot of times I'll put things in bold. They're lessons that I learned that I want you to know. And
almost like footnotes.
Yes, like footnotes, but they're little nuggets of wisdom. And I'm going to look it up. Is it okay if I just read from out of the book?
Please do. Go
because I'll probably, today was a really good day, page 129. I should know this, right? I wrote the book. I should know where everything is. So let's see. Okay, this is an amazing chapter. Okay, when everybody came back into the room, the mood lightened. In fact, it seemed to feel like a celebration. People were exhausted, so maybe they just started acting silly, or perhaps the heaviness was too much. I remember looking at Beth, wondering what she was thinking. She genuinely seemed to be enjoying the moment with everyone in the room. We all shared funny stories about her, and for a few minutes, it seemed like we were having a fun family reunion. Finally, one by one, people began to leave the room to find their bed. When everyone left, I crawled into bed. It was late, so I leaned over and gave Beth a kiss. As I laid my head down, she said, Cakeys, today was a good day. Today was a really good day. I told her that it was indeed. I smiled because I realized that even though she was dying of cancer, she was still able to say that it was a really good day. What an incredible attitude. What a profound lesson for all of us. When you crawl into bed each night, think about the good. This is what I put in bold.
I love it.
When you crawl into bed each night, think about the good things that happened to you that day. Like Beth, focus on the positive, even on your worst day. If you think about your blessings, you too will be able to say, today was a good day. Today was a really good day.
Wow. I think anybody, you should get this. This might be a great Christmas gift, guys. It's still got a couple days.
Yeah.
Amazon can get it to you overnight.
Yeah,
and I think this is very important to give to a spouse, whether it's a woman or a guy. I think this is showing, maybe not how you can express your words, but through this book, like he said, it's already healed a lot of people, and that's good. So what else can we get from this book?
I was going to look up because I had a woman that I went to school with this guy, And it's funny, I talked about starting at Channel 27. 2 weeks ago, I was in Springfield and Branson, Missouri. The mayor of Branson lined up this whole itinerary. I was on every major radio and TV
you
station.
You are a star.
Well,
you don't think you are, but you are. And you're humble. Yeah. You're a humble, down-to-earth guy, but you are a star. If people can recognize that.
I'm a blessed man. I still am amazed when people come up to me and want my autograph. I'm like, why? You know, I'm just a guy that sold stuff on TV. But I do feel blessed, but they did treat me like a star in Springfield, Missouri. And I'm trying to find this guy. Let me do a search. Paul Logsdon, because his wife is a writer. I was really afraid for her to read the book because she's a strong writer, and this is only my second book. And, you know, I didn't know what she would think. But I
hope you come back for that author's thing because
I would love
you're really
to.
going to be able to, you know, meet with other writers.
Yeah.
And their writers, of course, you're going to be on their page and your page.
Oh,
and
I'll be
everything.
there. Yeah, we can share for each other.
Yep.
Let's see if I can find this. But anyway, she wrote down her thoughts on the book, and it was really like, wow. Here it is. Kay Logsdon, you're right. Kay was a terrific writer. Okay, here it is. She wanted to just write her thoughts on the book. And they were so powerful. I said, "Can I use this in my publicity?" And she said, "Absolutely. Use anything you want." Okay, here she wrote. She said, "If you ever need a book to remind you how to love life, this is it. Wow. Yes, it tells the story of walking through cancer from diagnosis to death, and yet it is so full of moments done right that you can't help but think this is how to do it. An honest and heartfelt look at a life and death experience with 100 gritty details that are part of our universal experience. It feels as though this family has gone before us to prepare the way. We cry because it seems we know them. We also learn because their experience is so down to earth and so full of the wisdom gained from trials. Dan appears to be both seeking to understand his experience and find significance in the years ahead of him. This is a book to reflect upon and pull back out whenever you find yourself so caught up in daily life that you forget to enjoy what's in front of you. A truly memorable reflection of how to live life and how to prepare for death." It's like, wow.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, nobody, I don't know how you can prepare for death because, like you said, your wife knew she was going to die.
Yeah.
But it's the knowing, but not knowing when and the exact day and time.
Yeah.
That's the part that
None of us knows.
None of us knows. And
each day could be our last. And, you know, I'm a Christian.
That's why I live my life to the fullest every day.
Every day. Right. But my faith, I saw the way my wife faced death, and she said, "I'm not afraid because I know where I'm going." And I know where she is.
Yeah, she is.
I believe very strongly in the Bible that it says if you accept Christ as your Savior, you ask Him to forgive you of your sins, He does. It doesn't matter what we've done. It's a gift. I've screwed up my whole life, but He loves me, and every day He picks me up and He says, "Dan, let's go on." He's opened up doors for me, Gene, that I could never open up. This email I got from the 700 Club.
The 700, yeah, let's announce that again.
That is God. I will be appearing on the 700 Club with Pat Robertson and Terry Mewson, and I just kept writing them and saying, "Guys, I feel like," and then I had a couple other people say Dan's story would be perfect for the show. And it's so funny because I had a guest in from town 2 weeks ago, and she kept saying, "You're going to get on the 700 Club. I'm going to believe it." And I said, "From your lips to God's ears." Well, his ears must have been listening because I got this. Man. Yeah, I just.
That is so beautiful.
Oh, here it is from Molly Young. "Thanks for your patience, Dan. Yes, we do want you to come to Virginia Beach to be on a live 700 Club broadcast to discuss Hurricane of Love and your advice for dealing with grief as you go through a year of firsts. We will book this is all the things they're going to pay for, but we produce the club from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You'll need to fly here the day before you're on the program. and our producers do insist that our guests are booked on flights that arrive here by early evening. This allows for, so are you available to be with us on Monday, February 18th, Tuesday the 19th, Wednesday, February 20th, Tuesday, February 26th, Monday, March 4th, Tuesday, March 5th, Thursday, March 7th, or Thursday, March 14th? I will be on one of those days. I'll contact you, and maybe we can announce it when I'll be on.
Absolutely. Let's do that. Let's do that.
And this is
If
awesome.
you got free time now from now to the end, I'll tell you right now. Ruben will probably tell you the same thing. Not only will you be on the author's book, you'll probably be all on a lot of ministry shows if you want to be with the other ministries, because that's their word, right? That's the way they speak. They're.
I would love to be on.
We have so many. How many we have? Like 4 or 5? 5 of them.
Yeah. You know what, Gene? I got to say, it's great that you open it up for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just, from my own curiosity, I know you're having me on as your guest, but I love to interview people.
No, go ahead.
How did you start this, and why? What were you doing the rest of your life?
I was
Because this is not easy, folks. Having an internet radio station, having the equipment he has here, and having Ruben here, this doesn't just happen. There was something this was a part of a plan.
Yeah, it's all God's plan, because if you look at the way things were, like you said, subjugated and formatted, it was like this would never work this way, but yet it did. I was, years ago, I was going to be a baseball player, and I used to, do strikeouts.
Really? What position?
I was a pitcher.
Oh, okay. I was a center fielder.
Well, I was center fielder too, but I
Okay.
did pitching. And what happened was the Phillies farm team.
Really?
Yeah, from I think it was one of the middle states. They were, I don't know, Florida maybe. I can't remember. It's years and years ago. But they came out and they looked at me and they said, "This guy's got a good arm." I was pitching in an all-star game and I threw my muscle out, so I can't pitch anymore. So that was one career gone.
I had the same thing. I wanted to be a baseball player, and
really?
because of my speed, the St. Louis Cardinals. I played in their instructional league, but I was 23 at the time. They thought I was 12, and then the opportunity opened to work in TV.
Well, the thing was, it wasn't so much that I was a good ball player, but because I was a good pitcher, I could hit.
Oh yeah,
and I could place hit.
Yeah,
which was really important to a
Going
lot
to
of the agents, because anybody could pitch.
Yeah.
But if you can place it, run, and do everything, you're all well-rounded.
Yeah.
But then I had another thing where I used to, I was playing trumpet for 13 and a half years.
Wow.
And I was trying to form a band like Chicago.
Yeah, I love Chicago.
And maybe ELO. I'm friends with a couple people from Denny Seraphin.
Really? Are you kidding?
Tris Imboden.
Wow.
Yeah,
See,
and Jay Chef.
Wow, that's one of my all-time
They were
favorite
great
bands.
guys.
Yeah. In fact, I sometimes perform beginnings with my band.
I love
up there,
I love that
high
song.
in the neck. Yeah, it's a great song.
I love that song. But I'll go back to the trumpet, because what happened was I was playing third trumpet in this high school choir, and I just wanted more. I wanted to do more. But what happened was one of my neighbors next door, his relative was in the Tonight Show band. And I had no idea. I didn't believe him. He came over to me after the show and he said, "I'd like to book you. I'd like you to fly to California and come to be on the Tonight Show band with Ed Shaughnessy." And
Wow.
I'm like,
Really?
no. I was a stupid teenager. I didn't think that he was telling the truth.
You didn't think it was
And
true?
I didn't think that my parents would let me go, because I was only a teenager. I was like 16 years
you
old.
must have been good, my man.
Well, I was good where I was loud and I could play the notes.
Yeah,
Again, it's
yeah.
all about,
Yeah.
I didn't smoke.
Yeah.
So it was all about my lung capacity
Yeah.
and what I could say and what I could do.
I played trombone, and I grabbed one not long ago, and I couldn't even make a
Yeah,
sound out of it.
I can't play trumpet because
That
it's all
embouchure.
about the lip.
Trumpet is even small. I don't know how you'd play it.
It's the lip. Wow. But anyway,
Yeah.
I pissed that up because it didn't believe it. And then the next following week or so, we were watching the Tonight Show, and there was the neighbor sitting right in there.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm like, I told my parents, I'm like, I can't believe it. I
wow.
threw 2 careers away.
So then, how did you get to this?
Well, the
Forming
radio
Hamilton
thing is
Radio?
always, see, I always wanted to be a music producer in radio, even TV, because I worked for a local cable company at the time, and I worked switcher. I did the the camera work, and a lot of the stuff. You know, you start out somewhere. You know, it was free, but I got experience there, so it didn't cost me anything. But
I tell kids all the time, sweep the floors, do it for free, and you'll get a job.
We're always interning here if people want to. But anyway, what happened was I worked a little bit in radio, on AM radio, on FM radio locally, and I just get the bug. I worked overnight. I loved it, and I'm playing full side albums.
Wow.
You know, all the one side of different albums, whatever it was. Eat a Peach was one of them.
Yeah. Allman Brothers,
and people loved that because if they work overnight, you know, back then you didn't have a lot of chances. There's no internet. There's no Sirius radio, none of that.
Yeah.
So I said years ago, let me form a radio station that will play all that music, even the rare ones and the long cuts.
Oh, cool!
And at the same time, play local and independent artists that never get played.
Right.
And then once I did that in 96, 97, I had 50,000 listeners back then.
Wow!
Because there was not a lot of radio stations around that were doing that, and I had a full variety format, which allowed me to have all the people from this generation up to 70, 80 years old, from down to like 9. So that's a big gap.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just classic rock. It's a little bit of everything, oldies and all. So that's how we formatted it. And that's how I kept it that way. Yeah. And it's still the same way today, even, here. So we just added the social networks, right? A couple, like a year ago.
We were talking about video, and you're using it on Facebook. Hey, I know we're getting near the end. And
I got another show.
Can I run up by the camera with the book one last time?
Go ahead.
I'm going to show you the book, guys.
Go ahead.
And you can tell them what it is. Hurricane of Love.
Hurricane of Love.
Available on Amazon. Or go to hurricaneoflove.com.
Hurricaneoflove.com. That's the best way. It's written by Dan Wheeler.
How am I doing? Have I got it where they can see it?
A little bit down. Come down a little bit.
Oh, there's the monitor over there. Oh, there it is.
There you go. You can see it. Yeah, there you go. It's a beautiful written book. My friend Jim McCann actually is watching us. Hi, Jim, and John Conti, a comedian, is watching us. So, hey, guys, thank you all. We're gonna have Dan back again. He's only in Philly, so I'm trying to talk him into a radio show. Why don't you?
You never know.
Why don't you talk to him because he's close by. He wants to do radio. We could do something here, and we could really make this big for all of us. Yeah. So. All right, on behalf of Dan Wheeler, anything else you want to say?
Well, just thanks for having me. Oh,
you're welcome.
And you can go to hurricaneoflove.com if you want to watch an interview that I ordered and also that I did. And also there's an order button. You can order it right there, and that's actually better for me because that takes you to Westbow Press, or you can go to westbowpress.com. But that button will take you to my ordering page. It's paperbacks $17.99, the hardcovers $29.99, and the ebooks only $4.99. So read it, share it, tell your friends, and thanks for having me on, Dr. This was a blast.
It's my
Ruben,
pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, right? So guys, thank you. Great guests like this. Keep them coming. I'm going to probably start this new show called Talking with Doc G because I love doing stuff like this.
I think you should.
And, I do like 4 shows now. So.
I'll be your sidekick.
I do a trivia show. I do a show called Taking Back Our Country on Monday nights, which is more a anti-political stint on what's going on in the world. And then I do a show called Crystal Cavern, which does the music of the independent artists, but also their influence. What made them write their song, and that's heard all over the world. Of course, it originates in the UK. And I do a new show called In the Ring with the Trivia King.
Is this music trivia?
Yeah, it's all music trivia.
Ooh, I got.
Oh, you'll love it. And we give prizes away. We give gift cards away to different local, like Lowe's or Home Depot.
When does that show air?
We air that once a month. We'll probably be airing that the second week in January.
Okay.
So once a month.
Let me know.
Yeah.
You got my Facebook and my email, so let's.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely.
I want to see if I can win one of those gift cards.
Oh yeah, definitely. and that's what draws the people in.
Yeah.
Is the gift card? It's not even. It's a lot of money. It's just you're getting something for nothing. And who cares if you look at Google to get it? I don't care about that as long as you come up with the right answer. All right, guys. So thank you. Have a good day. And we're gonna more programming coming up. We got what is it? Brainstorms up next. And I believe the Paranormal Encyclopedia. And after that, the Alpha Male Show with Ed Ruffalo with Hawaiian Santa Claus making his entrance. So check that out.
God bless. God bless.
Bye-bye.